Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
We are controlling transmission. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. Thrill to the awe and mystery of the hidden world, the outer limits. You will journey into strange realms of science fiction. You will journey through uncharted galaxies from the inner mind of man to the outer limits. The outer limits. Every week on ABC.
Every part of comics and artwork is a form of communication with other people. It's not just here, let me direct my thoughts at you as a dictation of concept, but it's hoping to convince you of how cool you think a visual could be or a story could be. And you're trying to communicate ideas. In one part storytelling, in greater part just graphic impact, you're hoping to relate a sense of energy, urgency, and enthusiasm to people. That there's a lightning of spirit that comes out of superheroes that has always worked for me. That it isn't really about the practicality of what they might do. It's not the practicality about grown men punching each other in costumes. It really isn't about that. It's a visual metaphor. And that metaphor could be for a lot of things, but it's mostly just about the energy and enthusiasm that can be found in the fun of life.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Time again for another episode of To the Outer Limits from the Word Balloon Network. Look, we got a full house today. We're playing Hollywood Squares. Jeff Parker to block.
Yeah. I'm in the Paul Lynde Square.
Hey, but look, we're talking about Demon with a Glass Hand. We actually have a good episode to talk about during the second season. It's a fucking miracle.
True.
It's a great episode, even.
It's perfect.
It's I mean, certainly the best episode, I would say, of the second season.
Oh.
And you could easily make a vote for it being the best episode of The Outer Limits.
Certainly the most popular. Probably the consensus idea is that it's the best. It's not my opinion, but I think it's incredible. I think it's a really great episode. And also, I think it's just head and shoulders above Soldier. I mean, I think that this blows Soldier out of the water as just a really concise, cool, interesting, sophisticated piece of storytelling on TV that you would never see anyplace else.
Do you primarily bring that up because of the Harlan Ellison, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, because he wrote both of them. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, here's this might be maybe a few.
Here we go.
After.
Yeah, look at that.
Do we have the Harlan Ellison in the Nehru jacket? That's always my favorite shot.
I do not have the Nehru jacket. No, that's my only Ellison picture that I have. But no, this really, especially, obviously The Outer Limits being early 60s, obviously limited by its own special effects and aesthetic and what they thought aliens should look like. I mean, these guys all look like a bunch of muggers that got black eyes before they...
Yeah, and then they pulled off their,
stockings.
And it was unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some elements like that production-wise, I think it could, be a little bit better served. But that said, it also has the Bradbury building, and it has a lot of great production value to it. Should we tell people that don't know about this thing what the hell it is?
What's the plot?
Certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'll somebody else do it. I'm no good at this.
I'm sure it's freshest in my mind. I just watched it for the first time, finishing it about 8 minutes ago, I would say. Like
yeah, well,
wow.
That's great. You'd never seen this before?
I had never seen it.
Andy, what'd you watch it on?
Say what?
What'd you watch it on?
Daily Motion.
Okay, I want to apologize to everybody who watched Daily Motion because, it's kind of a pirate site, as John pointed out. who knew that it was going to have an Alex Jones InfoWars commercial?
Yeah, right.
That was really pissed me off right beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I had kind of a difficult, like a trying, difficult week. I worked straight through the weekend. If I'd had to watch a fucking InfoWars commercial, I probably just would have expired. So the fact that I have the Blu-ray set, I think, is a blessing.
I somehow got around it. I don't know. I clicked, and unlike other episodes, this one did not have awkward commercials every 5 minutes.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just the one at the beginning, Jeff, or was there more?
It ended it too, but it was. I mean, it's just this thing saying InfoWars. Watch this. It's a war on information.
Okay, all right.
But like Andy said, it didn't interrupt with any endless commercials like you usually get. So,
all right. Well, we're talking
Robett Culp.
Yes.
Apparently a mortal man from the future. He has a glass hand. It's missing some fingers, lobes, as it's
3 fingers.
Yeah.
He's like this basically when he takes off his glove,
which is like a weirdly arresting image. Like there's something about that really like struck me when I was younger seeing it, and there's something just strange and a little off about the whole idea of it, of a hand that is his hand, which tells him things. And then gets smarter as you put the fingers on. Like that's such a kind of abstract, weird, like interesting idea that doesn't feel like. I mean, it both feels like it makes no sense, but also has a kind of weird, intuitive sense to it that connects in a strange way. And that's a great area to be in.
It's like building a brain finger by finger.
Yeah, what the fuck does that mean? But there is something really weirdly
awesome.
Appealing and interesting about that.
And in his opening narration himself saying, "I was born 10 days ago. I don't know who I am. I have no idea," and just kind of setting up this weird status quo of who is he doesn't even know who he is. So it's a search for his own identity as well.
And he's being menaced by some slightly embarrassing looking guys from the future.
The Kai bands.
Who are not, they're aliens, but in the year 2964, Earth was conquered by them in 19 days, and then the population of Earth vanished overnight. And a large part of the story of this is what happened to them and where do they go, and how will he defend them, I suppose.
Yes. A bit of a nod. I never realized how much Man of Steel, the Zack Snyder Superman movie, borrowed from this in terms of the Kryptonian Codex, and the way that it turns out how the Earth population has disappeared and where they reside, and again, even to the way they explain that the human beings have been transferred. Spoilers, but that's what we do here. From their physical form to electronic impulses that are carried on this ribbon of copper.
Yeah, copper wire. Yeah. Which is which there is something. It's science fiction-y. It also has a weird, vaguely alchemical feel to it. Like there's a lot of there's just a lot of interesting textures in it. It's also Robett Culp is great in it.
Amazing.
And I think that he's fantastic casting for this, because he commits. I mean, a lot of this is carried on him, and a lot of it's carried on him when he's not even really without a lot of dialogue in a lot of ways. Yeah. So
it's probably where Culp first begins to be the guy in the white pants.
Yeah, I feel like he dressed himself, right? Yeah. Like that is the only way Robett Culp ever looked. He's always wearing those like peg white pants and
deck
shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
I love I Spy. It's so great. Can't enjoy it now.
Right. When I first saw this, I only knew Robett Culp from The Greatest American Hero, where he played the FBI agent Bill Maxwell, and so seeing he played an arch conservative in that versus Ralph Hinckley's liberal
Yeah.
school professor, college professor or community college. Anyway, too much detail there. He so seeing this, I love him in this. He's so furtive. The way his body language. I'm always body language in actors and performances. I mean, is like the other side of the seesaw to the dialogue, I think, and the way he moves throughout the Bradbury building, he's always on guard and he's kind of doubled over, and just his furtive movements, and also the way he delivers his dialogue. I love how he talks to his hand in such, intense. He believes in this hand,
Yeah.
Which also isn't he also the voice of the hand?
Oh, I don't know that actually.
Well, if he was, I didn't notice that.
He's not credited as such, but I read on one of the sites before I watched it the second time, and then I was listening for it, and I'm like, yeah, I think so.
It didn't hit
That's
me
a
that way at first,
cool
but
tie-in.
late in the episode, I had a moment where I thought, oh, I think they pulled his voice back in.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Well, so Andy, if this is your first time watching it, what are your big feelings about it? You hated it, right?
So we talked about how he works in the last, when we talked about Soldier. Again, really big ideas, kind of hitting you over the head with them, but so much creativity that it just kind of, you don't really have time to gather yourself because you're just being pummeled by ideas that I thought it lulled a little bit in the middle where we're just chasing, dodging, a little bit of that. And then I was struck again. I think I've said this before. The producers seem to be incapable of making him an episode without a romantic theme, and they look at John with the photo.
Yeah,
and they pull this in, and it gives a little more poignancy, I guess. And I spend a good few minutes going, how the hell do I know that woman? And of course, it's from Star Trek.
Yep.
Also,
Spock's wife.
She's also in Columbo with Robett Culp.
I love that episode. Yes, yeah. I have to admit, I have never related to Culp very well on film.
Really?
And my favorite Culp performance is Columbo, where he's a villain. I bought that more than other things, but I thought he was quite good in this. I was really struck, like you were talking about, William. Like he moves like a dancer. He moves kind of like Frank Gorshin, kind of like creeping around through the whole episode.
He said he based his performance on like ballet dancers.
Yeah,
which is such a great choice because you think, even though it's not revealed until the end that he's playing a robot, you'd think, okay, robot, play it stiff, play it mechanical.
Right.
But the fact that he has this kind of delicate physicality is just an example of what he's bringing. Even though the character is such a tabula rasa, he is bringing so much to that performance that it's captivating throughout.
Yeah. I see a comment just went by about the universe that Harlan created for this episode. And it's such a good point because there are other episodes of this series that hinge around a small idea that, what if this monster happened? Harlan creates a whole freaking, you could write.
You might be referring to the graphic novel that Ken Stacy drew.
Mm-hmm. Because I thought that now I've got a cover and an image. Is it
Night and crap.
Okay, so because the adaptation of Demon with the Glass Hand was drawn by Marshall Rogers.
Night and the Enemy.
Yeah, Night and the Enemy.
Okay, and yes, Stephen Commander also mentions Night and the Enemy as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So
there's I didn't see them myself, but there's a handful of offshoots, sequels, and other stories that take place during the Earth-Kybin War that Ellison wrote. So it's like its whole mini.
Let me be a little bit of the bad guy here and say that stuff works the least for me. Like the idea of, it's kind of big and generic, and who cares? Like the interesting stuff is the stuff right in front of us, and the and like the conflicts, and like you're saying with the romantic interest. I think that's underbaked. Not necessarily Ellison's fault, but because I know there was more material in there. But like, if you're a professional, you don't write a 70-something page script for a 50-minute TV show, right? Like, and then complain about it afterwards. Like this concept never seemed to quite boil down for Harlan Ellison. That you have to actually write the amount of material that fits in the play, right? But even the script that I read for this was 65 pages long, like a good 15 or more pages than you could handle. But the upside of that was that a lot of it, particularly the first couple of scenes in the script, were just a bunch of endless exposition that you didn't need at all. So I thought they did for the most part, even though it didn't serve the love interest character very well, a lot of what they chose to eliminate from it, I thought was judicious and smart.
Yeah. Well, going back to what we talked about during Soldier, I mean, don't you think part of Harlan's psychology was to create something too big, too grand, so that he always had something to bitch about how those bastards.
Sure, of course, yeah, and look, on some level, with his books, he's the author, and that's the buck stops there. But like when you're writing something for somebody else, if it were the greatest thing in the world, then somebody else might take credit for it. So you could at least have that you can reserve the part where you go, but it would have been better if they had that one shot where he goes out and sees there's a force field.
What Gabriel just said earlier today, I watched an interview with Harlan Ellison and Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman is talking and answering the questions through the interview, and Harlan is eating pizza. And it's basically just what Gabriel said, except at the end, Harlan finishes his pizza and then says, the writer is, and he has his little tirade. But anyway,
this to me, it feels like he learned from Soldier and said, I'm just going to set it in one cool place that has endless possibilities.
Well, he definitely didn't learn. Okay, like he was forced to do this. So the original, yes, they made him learn. The original version of it was this sprawling North by Northwest inspired trek across America that was like there was zero they would have had to shoot it like tiny scenes at multiple locations that would have just killed it, and they never would have been able to pull it off in Los Angeles. So like Bob Justman basically was like, look, I think it was Justman, and he was like, look, this is great, but we need to be able to shoot this, so it has to take place like in one spot. So he took Harlan down to the Bradbury building where the majority of this is shot, and they just walked around and looked in the basement and just found locations. And if anything, that script is overly specific about where they are at any given moment. It's a little tedious to read in that way, where it's especially by modern screenwriting standards, where he's constantly delineating what staircase somebody is on and how we're looking at him from. But
did they still let you tour the building? I got to run all over that place.
You can, as far as I know, the last time I was there, I visited every time I go. And the last time I was there, you could only go into the first floor lobby and look around, and they kind of block you from going higher than that. And part of that is a little tie-in for fans of Michael Connelly books. They've set a lot of scenes there because LA's internal affairs department is located in the Bradbury building.
Right. I think I think that's exactly why you can't go beyond the first floor. But so it's mostly closed off now. I know when I first moved out here, it was open, and I remember going and looking all around. But I went back like 2 years ago or something, and it was definitely closed off past the first floor.
From an architectural standpoint, outside, is it? I mean, I know it's a historic landmark. It was made a landmark in '77. But tell a little more background on the Bradbury building for us non-LA people.
William, you did some little research into this, right?
Do you have the picture I sent you, John, of the exterior?
Oh shit. Damn it. All right, is it in the chat? I'll pop it up if it's
yeah.
Is it in the Twitter chat?
Yeah, our personal DMs.
Okay. I'll find it. Keep going.
While you're doing that, so the Bradbury building, we all know, but just to say it, is not named after Ray Bradbury and has nothing to do with him. But how interesting that it would, end up being a science fiction staple. So Louis Bradbury was a gold mining millionaire, and he wanted a building in honor of himself. So this is downtown Los Angeles. And in 1892, he commissioned one, and he didn't like any of the proposed plans that they were offering him. And as the story goes, on his way out of the office, he saw a draftsman, started talking to this gentleman, and for some reason had a rapport with him and offered him the gig to design this building in his honor. So this draftsman, George H. Wyman, he was uncertain because he felt like he'd be stealing his boss's client. And he had a thing with his wife, and they decided the best thing to do was to ask George's deceased brother. So they had consulted his dead brother through some spiritualism, and he decided that yes, his brother said, go ahead and do it. So then he designed the building, and he says that his main inspiration was from a utopian science fiction novel, and that's called Looking Backwards by Edward Bellamy. And it describes architecture of the future in the year 2000 as a vast hall full of light received not alone from the windows on all sides, but from the dome. So that was like his inspirational point. And if you want to learn more, there's an episode of 99% Invisible, the podcast about architecture. And that's where I got all that from.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that the format you sent me the picture in is not one that StreamYard will use. It's a special kind of JPEG that.
Oh, weird.
Well,
okay.
People can look it up, but that's all really
interesting. Got the
stuff.
interior pictures that I did load.
It's down the street from the Angel's Flight.
And it's across the street from, it's right near the $1 Million movie theater. So this was featured heavily in Blade Runner, as most everybody knows. But you could actually see the exterior a little bit in Blade Runner, and that those couple of blocks. It's near Grand Central Market, and
you can also
downtown
walk
LA
to the last bookstore. It's only a few blocks. So
all the kind of downtown LA stuff that people at least did a year ago or whatever. Is all right around that area. So totally, if you're in Los Angeles and think downtown's not worth going to, go down there, check out all this stuff, because there's loads of great, interesting stuff, movie stuff, everything.
MacArthur Park.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like, absolutely, yes.
Sure. Again, such an iconic episode that they made the trading cards, and here's the exclusive. If you were lucky enough to get an autographed Robett Culp, this is what it looked like.
Nice,
cool.
But am I the only one who ran to eBay to see if you could buy a glass hand?
Oh, I didn't. Even think
the
about
actual
that.
hand.
I did find one. This guy claims that he labors over each one 70 hours.
How much do they run?
He has a series of 7 that he's selling now for $550, and it's the hand with the detachable fingers, and it looks pretty authentic. There's a wire inside each finger, and it's mounted on a wood kind of plaque, and it's got an MP3 player with it, so you can play clips.
Okay.
And it apparently has lights in it, so
that's a great idea.
It comes with a replica of a piece of fabric from Culp's shirt. So I don't know what.
What?
Yeah, I'm sure the guy just went to Joann Fabrics and bought a bolt.
That part I don't understand at all. But that sounds neat. I would like to have one of those.
Yeah.
Here's
a go very nicely with your other props, Gabe.
There's a comparison of Culp and Marshall Rogers' depiction of Culp in the graphic novel, and then also apparently Terry Doyle did the opening. Here in a sci-fi magazine called Sci-Fi Times around the same time as the graphic novel, and I wonder if DC or somebody gave him a cease or desist because he never apparently finished the story. But I thought that was kind of neat as well.
By the way, back to production for a moment. I actually thought this one looked pretty good, and I think if they just had the balls to leave the stockings over the alien spaces, they would have had a creepy kind of cool look throughout, and just show the actors' stupid mouths.
I agree about that, and I think that and there's probably a version where they did something different makeup wise underneath that stocking that made it just a more interesting thing than the super generic guys that we get. But I don't think it kills it, and there's so much great atmosphere and look to the Bradbury building, and like unlike a lot of certainly these second season episodes, you can just picture the look of this episode in your head. Like it has a coherent atmosphere and look and thing to it that so much other stuff doesn't.
Michael, I don't believe Michael's comment is correct. I don't believe Demon with the Glass Hand was remade for the 90s Outer Limits. I don't remember seeing it.
There was an episode called The Human Operators that also takes place in the Khyber War.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No remake.
Oh shit! Well, we should have watched that then.
Yeah, had I
about
known,
that.
I would have watched it as well. But no, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm aware of a couple of the remakes, and we certainly will discuss iRobot when we get to iRobot. But
on the aliens, I'd like to pitch in that although I wasn't in love with them per se, and they didn't bother me, I did all of a sudden think they were really cool once we actually get to the time mirror room, which is what we're seeing right now. Because I was like, it's like a deleted scene from Metropolis all of a sudden. Like
that's what I was thinking. It looked like a Buck Rogers serial all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Metropolis, because the one thing that struck me watching it again today, and this was an episode that I distinctly remember watching it for the first time, and it blew me away. But what hit me, the element that hit me the most rewatching it wasn't Ellison's script, which is, as much as I enjoy it, but was Byron Haskin's direction and Kenneth Peach's cinematography. And the reason why Metropolis sparked that is because those guys were old by the time this was made. Yeah, they were in their 60s, so they had worked in I know Haskin had worked in silent film. Yeah, and what they produce here, it feels very dreamlike to me, which I think totally fits, where Trent is again, where he's in action, but he knows so little, and he's learning about things, learning about himself as he goes. They hit on an atmosphere and a look that just puts you in his place, as strange as a mindset as that is.
Yeah, that beginning is straight out of a German expressionist film, with the stretched shadows and overhead shots. It's great.
Right, but also it's totally artificial. I mean, it's a down shot past a street light with a big shaft of light coming from the other direction. The street light is not throwing the light, right? So, I mean, there's something but I think that works really well as a sort of subliminal off-kilter thing that, to get us into this world. Absolutely. No, and it really is one of the more atmospheric second season episodes. And I mean, compared to the conventionality of the others. So God, remember that one with the guy with the optometrist? Jesus, this is like a real thing.
You would never believe that episode is directed by the same director as this.
I know.
They're Haskins, but
I know. Well, clearly Haskin rose to the material. I mean, Haskin said that he thought that he he met with Ellison, and his quote was, "Ellison is nuts." And they apparently just got in a big fight about everything because, old man Byron Haskin is looking at the script going, "How the fuck do I visualize this stuff? What is any of this?" Right? And then he and Harlan Ellison are sitting around trying to hash out the way that he would visualize it, and then apparently Ellison just pissed him off, and Byron Haskin threw him out of the offices. But
there are two differences between the script and the finished episode that I'd like to call out, because one is an addition and one is a deletion. The deletion was after the control voice did his spiel at the end. Trent came back in with his own comments, and he said that after he fulfills his eternity of waiting for the future humans to meet up with him again, that he hopes they do the right thing and turn him off. He just wants it to be done. Right. So that was removed. And then the thing that was added, which to me was a really moving moment, even though the relationship between the two was rushed. Although they did put a lampshade on that when earlier in the show, he says, "I don't have time to fall in love with you." And she's like, "Well, since we'll be dead by the morning, we have to kind of skip a few. We have to skip ahead."
A little bit of special pleading there, but sure. Yeah.
I thought she did I like the Consuela character. I thought she did a great job.
She's great. I love that actress. What's her name?
Helena Martel.
Martel, yeah. And she has such a great look to her. And the funny thing is in the teleplay, he very, very pointedly says Consuela is a tired, not beautiful woman with lines in her face. It like goes way the fuck out of the way with that.
Well, they
apparently the casting director didn't get this note.
Well, the thing they added that I wanted to throw in there before I forget was at the end, she leaves during his conversation with the hand before that concludes. But in the actual episode, they have a moment together where they acknowledge that he's a robot, and he reaches slowly for her hand, and she slowly recoils, and the outer
she
limits
pulls away.
theme comes up, and then she walks away, and I'm like, oh,
yes, that's way better. I mean, that's making it about our characters.
I have to say, I was
arc,
totally, I was totally not prepared for that twist. I didn't. It really hit
a great
me.
surprise.
Yeah.
No, it absolutely is a great because you really only think it's the hand, and then realize that he's an
whole dude.
One other thing about the Consuela characters that allegedly Harlan Ellison originally wrote her as an African American character, and that the studio was like, no, you're not doing that. And then then in the script she's Latina. Her name is Consuela, but clearly this was not necessarily part of the scheme with casting. But like the part about he writes her as an African American character. The studio says no. He gets all pissed off. Blah, blah. Reading every Harlan Ellison quote feels a little bit like I'm reading a suspicious Wikipedia page. Like
I don't want to get us off on a big tangent. Maybe we're not done with the episode, but these Harlan stories that reminded me of a great Alex Toth story. Is it too early to take us away?
Let's go for it. Then we can still.
Then we'll come back.
This is third, fourth hand. I don't know. It's bastardized several times over, I'm sure. And John, you may have had this story on your podcast at some point.
Go on.
Mark Evanier. Evanier? How do we prefer?
Evanier.
Evanier, right? Yeah.
Evanier.
And a couple buddies make a pilgrimage to Toth's house. This is probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And they're talking to him, and they ask him if he has any art he'd like to sell, and he says, I got this thing. I do have this story over here that the bastards never published. I don't know. I never really thought about selling it. I guess I'd sell it. And Mark's like, well, what kind of price? And he throws at the time some outrageous figure, like $500 or something. They leave, and they think about it, and they decide, well, if we pool our money, we can buy this story. It's like a 10-page story. They call him. They say, we got the money. Alex says, all right, I guess you can come by tomorrow. They show up tomorrow. They got cash in hand. Alex is in his bathrobe, and he's shuffling around and bitching about things. And they at some point, it's kind of awkward. He's not getting the goddamn story out. And Mark says, so Alex, we got the cash. Could we get that story? And he said, well, after you guys called yesterday, I went and pulled it out and looked at it again. And it just pissed me off how those bastards fucked me over so bad that I tore it up. It's over there. In the
my
trash. God. And then you're like, what? So they leave pained, and cut forward like 10 years. The story was from some kind of war book that Kubert had been editing at the time. So Mark runs into Kubert at some convention or in the offices. He tells him the story, and Kubert says, oh, yeah, I know that one. He said, I sent Alex. Nobody else wanted to use him. He's such a pain in the ass. I sent him script after script. Nobody else would hire him at DC. Time after time, this son of a bitch. I think Joe kind of viewed Toth as kind of a spoiled mama's boy kind of figure, who just wouldn't listen to authority. He said, I sent him this script. I said, if I get that son of a bitch back and it's 1 page short or 1 page long, it's going right back in the fucking mail and you're not getting paid. Sends out the script. Weeks go by. He opens up the envelope, pulls it out. It's fucking 2 pages long. He puts it back in the envelope. He shifts it back to Alex, and he's done with it.
Wow.
And then Kubert got wistful, and he said, too bad. It was a beautiful fucking job.
That's really funny.
God. Oh, that's nice. Gore Vidal says conversations like this make me think of Word Balloon's interview with Zach Crucy, where he said that Doctor Strange was East Asian, but westernized when the comic began selling well. Yeah, that's true. Zach and I talked about that, and if you look at those very first Ditko stories of Doctor Strange, he's very much Asian. Yeah.
Yeah, although it's probably a blessing that happened because these stories would be way harder for all of us to deal with in the modern world if they had stuck with the kind of Orientalism thing that was not so attractive. But I'm glad that deceased Gore Vidal is.
Yes, he's a fan. He's a fan.
He still got it. Yeah.
If Truman Capote shows up, my night will be complete.
I hope Gore joins us on our subsequent Kinescope look back at the golden age of television, where I'm sure we'll discuss a Gore Vidal.
We will be we'll be discussing some of your scripts, Gore.
Exactly. Buckley doesn't show up. We get a fight.
God, yeah! In the comments, it'll be it'll be a bloodbath.
Oh no! Start fighting in the chat.
Best of Enemies. If viewers don't know what we're talking about, great documentary of. I had those filmmakers on Word Balloon when they first came out, and oh my God, what a wonderful war of words between William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal during the 1968 Democratic or both presidential conventions. Yeah. Conventions. Thank you.
I have these fantasies about going to some like the Beverly Hills Hotel or whatever and having drinks with Truman or Gore Vidal, any one of my heroes like that. And somehow in my fantasy, they're all mean to me. It never works. It never works out.
That's because you're a writer, and so if you're a writer, you can't have a real fantasy. You have to undo it with conflict, right?
Right.
I actually one time at the Los Angeles Festival of Books, which used to be a thing here, the Gore Vidal was signing, and I got a book signed by him, and I tried to say something complimentary to him, and he just like looked up at me, and then looked down, like just. Go away. I don't even understand you.
He didn't give you my Harlan moment, that bastard.
No.
Andy and I had our moment with George Clayton Johnson, and I had several great conversations with the late great Studs Terkel before he passed away, and Bud Schulberg. So I'm pleased to say my encounters with my writer heroes have all been great. So including my present company right now, except for Gabe when he yells at me.
Yeah.
See, couldn't even take a fucking tablet for 5 seconds. Son of a bitch.
That's the Al Williamson advice, man.
I have a Blade Runner thing.
Never go backstage. It's
yeah. All right. So, anyways,
William, you started to say that you had a
Blade Runner connection that I noticed this time that I don't think I noticed last time. Of course, it's in the Bradbury building, but also both pieces of work feature an action scene in a room full of mannequins.
Oh, yeah.
And then the two fighting dudes go out the window.
Right.
And they're supposedly both on the roof of the Bradbury building. Although I think in the case of this episode, it was a studio, but nonetheless.
Do you think that in the case of Blade Runner, unlike the Terminator, did Ridley Scott acknowledge because there's no, or Philip K. Dick. I don't know.
Well, Dick didn't have anything to do with Blade Runner, but apart from the story being based on it, the story is not. I love that novella, but it's not. It's not that one-to-one of an adaptation. But I just find. I mean, Ridley Scott. I just find it very unlikely that he would ever have known what the Outer Limits was, or seen that. But
the only thing is on that.
But
go ahead, Ian.
We should point out this episode didn't air in Britain until 1980.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's already directing his 1984 Mac commercials or whatever.
Well, remember, Consuela's supposed to be a seamstress.
Yeah.
Her whole thing is garments and everything, and maybe that was a big section of the Bradbury building. I don't know. It's just they just. I thought the theme was the fact they're kind of subtly hinting there's unreal people You know, it's like
Oh, interesting.
we're just kind of foreshadowing the fact that Trent isn't going to be a real human.
Right,
Sure.
right. That's interesting. I wish she'd lent some of her her tailoring skills to the bad guys who were just wearing fucking embarrassing unitards. But the no, go ahead.
Ridley Scott did say on the copious behind the scenes stuff on the final cut of Blade Runner that they told him we shouldn't shoot there because of the long history that the building has, and he responded, "Well, no one shot it the way I'm going to do it." So,
and that's absolutely true. It's like the most beautiful thing ever. It's Jordan Cronowith, I believe.
Yes,
the DP. But yeah, I mean, I think that I think I lost the thought that I had. So somebody else go.
Well, you know, Consuela doesn't come cartwheeling through like Daryl Hannah.
True.
At any point. But I like the fact they do kind of very naturally get her very short arc in there. You know, she mentions she's broken up with her husband who beat her, and she hates violence, but she ends up helping Trent by jerking the little things off and sending them to infinity.
Yeah.
So she comes closer to him. He never actually kisses her, though he does do the thing of whispering so extremely close into her face that they might as well be, you know.
Well, it's TV close, you know, like everybody back when we had the Academy ratio, it was, you know, like everybody had to be packed into the frame. Like if you watch even like 90s Star Trek, it's like people are always way too close to each other, you know.
That's hilarious. No, that opening scene with them where he's, you know, holding her against her will and smushing his face into hers and stuff. It really, I mean, I normally, I guess because I've seen these things so many times and so earlier, I haven't watched them with 21st century eyes before. And it was like, wow, man, that's like almost like, listen, I don't want to hurt you as I force myself and press myself against you.
Yeah, it's very 3 Days of the Condor with you know.
Yes, Faye Dunaway.
And Faye Dunaway.
Yeah. I mean, talk about 21st century eyes. That I rewatched 3 Days of the Condor not that long ago, and there is some problematic stuff in there. I'm not missing anything in that one. There really is.
Well, you know, they've remade it now as an Epix television show. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I am curious to see it, comparing it to the book and the Redford movie. So,
I still like loads of stuff about that movie. I mean,
if I could draw, I would be doing my own Hitman comic book about Joubert. Max von Sydow's character.
Because
Sydow's such a cool character.
Sydow's in the movie so little, but he gives it all the weight.
Yeah,
all the gravitas comes from him, and his beautiful speech to Redford explaining how it's going to go down at the end. I just love it, and I've personally ripped it off a lot in my stuff.
Sure.
But the book, however, is terrible. It's
a
I've never read it.
It's one of the few things where it was 6 Days of the Condor.
Yes.
And it's one of the few things where you go, okay, the movie, Sidney Pollack's movie was better. Because the guy wasn't a fiction writer. He actually worked, I believe, for the CIA. And that's why it gets elements that feel very authentic. But as far as
it's a little flat.
As far as actually writing, that wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of perfect, though, for adaptation.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Much like the Godfather original book and stuff, it's like I'm always fascinated by
Puzo.
just the basis or the baseness of some of the original material sometimes, and then when someone adapts it and really makes it shine in a film or a television series.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can pull elements out of something that
Right.
will emphasize the good parts and de-emphasize the parts where, I'm not even going to go into it with that.
Well, MASH. I mean, I read the MASH. Yeah, I mean, I read the MASH book, the original MASH book before the Altman film, and yeah, it's like
Well, yeah, I didn't even know that it was based on a book, but I mean, I know that that what's his name, the screenwriter of MASH, was furious at the Altman adaptation of it because he just threw the script out and didn't care at all.
Yep.
But
he did the Altman thing of I'll find the movie eventually, and luckily he did.
Sometimes he did, I mean, and honestly, like in a lot of ways, this. Here on the Robert Altman podcast, it's one of the great things about it. If it seems like he's this sloppy director, but if you look at the movies he made, he had just as good a track record at coming up with great movies as people who were more precious and precise. So I don't know that that's necessarily a wrong strategy.
Again, with Demon with the Glass Hand, the iconography of the hand. And also Trent as a character. I mean, we talked about that. People have made props of the hand and stuff. There is a model of Trent, appropriately dressed in white, and that is still available, and it's $60.
Yeah,
to get this from.
And they got his body language right there.
What's that?
His body language. Captured
Right there. Yes,
absolutely. It looks like he's skulking.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah. Compare that to.
And one other thing about this. It actually did win a WGA award for best teleplay for an anthology, which is actually pretty, in a lot of ways, pretty impressive. I mean, considering there still is not it's not like there's loads of respect for genre stuff. I mean, it's and so in 1964 winning that's pretty not nothing.
Yeah.
I have here the list of the shows it was up against. Would you like to hear the other nominees?
Way to go, William.
Yeah, by all means, yeah.
Bob Hope Presents the Chrysler Theater.
How you doing, everybody?
That was one of the shows.
Yeah, but that was an anthology show, a dramatic anthology show. It was not a Bob Hope show. Go on.
So what was the title of that? What was the title of that episode?
Of the episode from the Bob Hope show?
Yeah, did it mention it?
Cops and Robbers was the name of that episode.
All right.
That sounds like garbage.
I'm going to look
Craft Suspense Theater.
Yep.
Okay.
And then lastly, the Purex Summer Special.
Well, stiff competition.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Eddie Albert and Verna Lynn are joining us tonight on that Purex special.
Is she related to Vera Lynn?
Eddie Albert.
So the Outer Limits would seem to cast a very dark shadow over its competition.
Those are all limits beat us against, sons of bitches.
Those were all anthology shows, so we have no idea what they are.
Gabe and I, honestly, as we're kind of going through the anthology shows of the late 50s into the early 60s and stuff, God, every celebrity had their own anthology show. Loretta Young.
Well, yeah, every
Montgomery.
celebrity who couldn't get work in movies anymore.
Right.
Who was a little too
Bob
old.
was still making shitty movies. But yeah. But you're right. Fred Astaire had Premier Theater.
Yeah.
Bob Hope had Chrysler Theater. No, you're right. I mean, honestly, like I said, Robert Montgomery, Elizabeth's dad, who was so great, and They Were Expendable, and the original Heaven Can Wait. Here Comes Mr. Jordan, among his great films.
Yeah, he was a director as well. Pretty stiff, but he was.
Yeah. Well, and he was I wouldn't want to sit down and have dinner with him, but I really loved his acting. He was a great actor.
Sure. Yeah, he was a big right winger. Right.
Can we come back to how great Robert Culp is?
Yes,
please, absolutely.
One thing I've always appreciated about Culp, I mean, he really seems to remember everything he did. Whenever you read stuff with him, he loved this episode. He touts it as one of the best TV episodes.
That's right.
Period. Not just to the Outer Limits. And he knew his shit about comics and cartoons and stuff. When he would be interviewed about things, he would name creators and he would go into storylines and you're like, oh, he's not winging it, here. Right. He would talk about Terry and the Pirates or whatever, and he knew what he meant.
Well, there's an episode he wrote for I Spy, and his femme fatale was based on the Dragon Lady.
Exactly.
And in the commentaries for I Spy, he goes at length about how he wanted to be a cartoonist before he became an actor. And I saw him at San Diego one year when I don't even know if they made the comic or not. I think they did. I don't remember the company, but they adapted Greatest American Hero.
Oh, I remember this. I think I saw that same. I went by that same booth at San Diego. That
okay, and yeah, William Cat, Connie Selica, and Culp were on the panel. And yeah, man, Culp was very proud of his nerd cred, and very much like this. You are my people, and like it was really cool to see. And that's what I love about Culp. And really, I love I Spy. I'll confess, I still watch I Spy because I think it was a well-made show. And it's interesting that it came from Sheldon Leonard, a master of comedy, and this great action show and everything. But honestly, I think Culp, he did these 3 Outer Limits, Architects of Fear, and what's the Rock one?
I can't remember because he called it the Rock one.
The Rock one.
But well, it's not Moonstone. It's the one where the rocks are possessed and then turn everybody into zombies, and then they go to Mexico.
Oh,
yeah. Which now I can't remember the name of. But but actually, Culp was also very, very complimentary about Byron Haskin in this, and and about his job directing the episode. So, which was interesting because everybody else has, like Haskin was apparently a very grumpy guy, and everybody else's comments about him are a little, but Culp seemed, I think the fact that he was so committed and gave such a committed performance is a huge part of what makes this work.
And also beyond being a very solid leading man, wrote Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, a very important movie in the or significant movie, if not important movie of the late '60s. And I have nothing but respect for him. And like I told you guys, I don't know if we talked about it on the air, but I know we've talked about it off the air. Something to look for that I've always seen in the bootleg DVD section, a pilot that didn't make it, but they made a movie out of it. An early 70s thing called Spectre, and it's him and Gig Young, and they're like paranormal Sherlock Holmes and Watson, demon and ghost investigators. Roddy McDowall is in it. It involves
God.
It's a great early 70s TV movie.
Who created
I gotta
that
find
shit?
this.
It's Leslie Stevens, right?
Because I couldn't understand it.
You're bearing the lead. Who created Spectre?
Gene Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah. And it would have been cool.
We know Harlan didn't blow smoke, and he claims he thought Culp was one of the few really smart actors he ever worked with. And yeah, I could just picture Culp wowing Harlan with his knowledge of comics or sci-fi stuff.
They probably hit it off pretty well. And to get back to Columbo, he's my favorite Columbo villain.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
I'm a Jack Cassidy guy, but I get
he always seems like he's really going to kill somebody.
Right.
Yeah, and Gore agrees with William in terms of it was Greatest American Hero that they were introduced to.
I mean, so was I. I mean, I when I was a kid, I loved Greatest American Hero.
Sure.
I thought the show was great. And that is the first place I saw.
He was great. He was great comic relief. Seriously, like a tremendous actor till his last days. He was great on Raymond as Raymond's father-in-law. Funny as hell. And they gave him. It wasn't a very special Raymond, but he had to play a serious role with Deborah. I can't remember her name right now. Is
this a TV show post 1989? Because yes. I just don't know what you're talking
about. Patricia, whatever Patricia Heaton, Catherine Hellman and Robert Culp played her parents. They're getting divorced. She's upset. I mean, she's an adult woman, but her parents are separating. And he has this really touching scene of being concerned dad and being like, hey, we tried and we stayed together for you kids, but it's okay. And we're both okay for it. And again, I honestly had nothing but respect for him. I didn't get to meet him, but the radio show that I was on, the sports radio show, we did a week at the Playboy Mansion. I, of course, had to stay in Chicago. Wah. But, they got to meet all the Playboy Mansion regulars, and that would be Martin Landau, Robert Culp, and James Caan. And all
John,
these
I'm picturing you outside the Playboy building in Chicago crying.
Pretty much. Mini-Me was swimming naked on the back of a Playmate, one of the guys told me, and stuff. And they're the most surreal week of
Vern Troyer.
Yeah. So anyway.
Sad. But Stephen Ernest in the comments
Yes.
helpfully
Yes.
let us know that Corpus Earthling is the one with the rocks where they get
absolutely, man.
Nice.
So and
from
Gore also says not an Outer Limits episode of the film which aired on ABC, A Carol for Another Christmas with Sterling Hayden, pardon me, as Ms. Scrooge in a Cold
Well,
War.
we all love
Wow.
Sterling Hayden.
I'll watch anything. Yeah, Sterling.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
I am aware of that
from a
film.
From a story standpoint, one thing that struck me about Demon with the Glass Hand was the brilliant fake out where the computer tells him the better percentage to defeat the aliens is to let them kill you.
Yes.
Which is the Doctor Strange strategy that we have to lose in order to win. So
nice.
I thought that was a great moment in the story.
I like that Culp didn't argue. He's like, "Oh, okay, guess."
Yeah,
that's
he
the way it is.
immediately
Like,
puts it into action
hands
and lets
never
himself
wrong.
get shot.
Right. Well, he is a robot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I was really impressed watching this again, and
I'm so glad it held up because it's been at least 10 years since I've seen it last.
Yeah,
and it really, I knew I've fondly remembered it, and thank God the memory is right. And I mean, honestly, I don't know, like the likelihood of anyone watching this that isn't already a fan is probably slim. But truly, if I would recommend it to anyone in terms of, despite it'd be interesting if a 20-something could look at this and appreciate it for the story. In the chat, someone mentioned earlier, it's kind of like early Doctor Who, where you need that suspension of disbelief and really need to lean on the story more so than what you're seeing as far as the cheapness or where or simple.
None of this means a thing to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it looked great. I mean, apart from those dopey bad guys, it's fine. I don't know. I like, if people can't accept things on their own terms, it's their loss.
Oh, Charlie Callis should have been one of these guys, by the way. He wouldn't have needed much makeup.
Wasn't one of the aliens? Wasn't one of the aliens in Expanding Human last week?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And also, one of the, I believe it's this guy on the left, is in the Star Trek episode with Scotty, where the aliens, they got to make the aliens feel like humans, and Kirk, of course, seduces the woman, and
he plays the big dumb one, doesn't he?
Yes, and what is Scotty gets him drunk, and there's that great scene of what is this, and Scotty looks at it and he sniffs it, looks at it again. It's green.
Green. Yes.
Yeah. So that guy is again. You can't help but the Star Trek connections. Thank you, Bob Justman, for always cherry picking people like T'Pring and that guy.
So
I hate to out myself as the old guy on the podcast, but I like to preach to my kids that everything great happened in 1964, and this episode aired 16 days after I was born. So
there you go.
I'm right there. December 2nd, 64.
Nice.
Myself, Madge.
I was picturing my dad holding his little baby, watching this, going, "This is all right."
I'm assuming Stephen Commander found Spectre on YouTube because that's where I've seen it. And I can't recommend that early 70s Roddenberry, Robert Culp, Gig Young thing. Gig Young's the big great surprise because it really is like pretty much right before Gig Young is foaming at the mouth in Blazing Saddles at the start of the shoot, where Mel Brooks is like, "I don't think we can use Gig Young," and they get Gene Wilder to play his role instead. But yeah, I mean, he looks like hell. I mean, he looks pretty in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? In comparison to the way he looked in Spectre. He's a pile of peppers, as Dana Gould might say.
All right, so I think that we've done it. I think so. Next week, we're gonna the episode is Cry of Silence.
Are we doing a two for next week, or are we gonna do one?
I think we're probably going to do a twofer. I mean, this one is Eddie Albert and Arthur Honeycutt, and they get attacked by rocks and forest.
I like
Arthur Honeycutt in like the worst Twilight Zone, where he and his faithful hound are trying to avoid hell.
Sure, yeah.
It's so bad.
Right.
So
honestly, that one makes me cry, but whatever.
All right. Hey, all right. Couple final comments from the folk. Yes, I agree with Steven. Consuelo's looking for a rejection at the end always gets to me. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And Gore says, unfortunately, when I've been on channels with younger panelists discussing programs and films before they were born, it degenerates into discussions about special effects and social norms of the time. I agree.
That is sad. That's if you can get him even past the fact that it's in black and white.
Absolutely. Steve Commander, Jeff wants you to know that your Aquaman run was one of his favorites next to Sean McLaughlin's, and he's been following you since Silver Bullet website days. Very nice.
Stephen, thank you very much.
Excellent. And Stephen Ernest is like, oh, we're doing this on Wednesdays now. No, honestly, this was to accommodate my COVID vaccine schedule and Gabe's COVID vaccine.
Yeah. So last week, John was getting the second shot on Thursday. This week, I'm getting the second shot tomorrow. So I thought, even if I'm just sleepy, I don't really want to do this. So we just bumped it up. We'll go back to Thursdays after that.
Yes, and
Hey, that would have been good podcast, man. That was.
I already I got the shot and did the podcast for the first shot, and I was incredibly sleepy, but when this is show business. When the lights were on, I was there.
You were, but still one of the best shows is when everything failed, and it was just between Ian and Meyer just sitting there holding up signs at each other.
When I watched that back, that was brilliant. But the thing that sucked was that we were talking about a good episode. Why didn't that happen about a fucking episode where,
Behold Eck.
Yeah, Behold Eck. Right. Yeah.
Brought to you by Pearl Vision.
Oh.
And again, if you watch Daily Motion for Demon of the Glass Hands, brought to you by the American Socialist Party. Working hard for a better America.
I'll tweet those photographs that didn't.
Please do.
That'd be great.
Yeah, link to the YouTube.
So we very likely will also be covering The Invisible Enemy with Adam West next week.
Oh,
see, that's awesome, and that's great because really between Eddie Albert, Arthur Honeycutt, and Adam West, they all walk in a bar, and we'll be able to talk about it for an hour. That'll be great.
Ted Knight is also.
Wait, Lou, I'm making an Outer Limits, Lou. Help me. That's excellent. I can't wait. That they say you'll have to listen to my Ted Knight next week. Fantastic.
All right.
Meanwhile, at the Bradbury Building, Trent is trying to get the Cybermen or whatever they're called.
Cybermen.
You're right. They do resemble the early Cybermen.
There is actually a little bit of that. Yeah, except that even Doctor Who committed harder to the Cybermen early on.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so join us back on our regular proper day of Thursday night at the same bat time and same bat channel, and we will talk about 2 more episodes of season 2 of The Outer Limits. Everybody, thank you very much. Great questions, great comments, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Get vaccinated. Don't waste time.
Yeah.